Hi, everyone. So welcome to ACM Impact, our Careers in Social Impact Tech workshop. This is the first workshop in a series that will be going on throughout fall quarter. And today is just an introduction, so it might be a little bit shorter, but we hope you still get a lot of good information out of today's workshop. First, let's talk about a bit about what ACM Impact is. So ACM Impact is an ACM initiative, and I realized I didn't explain what ACM is. ACM stands for the Association of Computing Machinery, which is the largest CS student organization here at UCLA. And we are an initiative within that organization, and our focus is on socially responsible engineering, social impact technology, and tech policy. And more explicitly, we have a mission statement, which is to cultivate a community at UCLA that is committed to improving the social impact of technology and the technology industry as a whole. We also have a really great blog post, I believe that is on Medium, that introduces our initiative and kind of what our goals are. And that was published in fall 2020. So I think the slides were linked in the Zoom chat. You can click on that link and you can find these slides, and you can click on that link to read our intro blog post. And so kind of sum things up a bit more neatly here. The point of impact is we're trying to change this perception in this image here, right? So I assume a lot of people here are in computer science or some technical discipline. And so we can start by figuring out, how do you pick a STEM major? Are you good at things like physical objects? And well, if you're a computer science person, the answer is probably no. And so then I ask you, do you like math or money? And then if you say, yes, you like math and money, then I ask you, do you prefer to perform overt immediate evil or slow indirect evil? And that gets you to computer science. So we're trying to change the perception that computer science is evil. We believe that computer science and our tech skills can be used for generating socially good outcomes and not just doing evil or generating money. And so today, the hosts for this workshop are myself and Alyssa. I am an officer in ACM's AI committee, and Alyssa can also introduce herself.
I used to be an officer for cyber, and I help out with Teach LA and here.
Awesome, thank you. And so next up, to talk about what is social impact technology, I think that's Alyssa.
Yep. So that's probably what you're all wondering. After all, we call ourselves ACM Impact. And impact is kind of it's a very broad word. So let's talk about what we're trying to focus on here. And another follow-up question would be, how do you even classify, an organization's impact? So we can think of this in sort of like an ABC, like the ABCs to social impact, and that there's many ways of doing like tech for good, right? Like you could do something that simply doesn't have any bad consequences. So then that's kind of just acting to avoid harm, tech that isn't evil. But also maybe you want something good, like a good consequence of the tech. So then that's creating something that benefits the stakeholders. That's our A and B. And these are good things, but there's more that tech can do. Tech can also actually contribute to solutions. So not only is it not bad, not only is it good, but it positively reacts and generates good outcomes. So we can kind of think of this as a distinction between responsible tech and impact tech, where responsible tech is, just being good and trying to minimize all the bad that's happening. But impact tech also proactively tries to create positive benefits. So maybe something we could think about is corporate social responsibility, which is a buzzword some of you may have heard of, like when Chevron says, we're going to use cleaner fuel, which is better. But maybe there's an impact tech startup that is actively trying to create some sort of not fossil fuel to power cars. No offense to fossil fuels, but I think we all know they're kind of bad. So a lot of these companies are things like Duolingo, Khan Academy, Code for America, that are actively trying to create solutions. And also, if you're interested in Civic Tech, talk to Jason. He's a pro. Very cool. And if you guys have any questions at the end, happy to address them. I know I'm kind of speeding through this. So now you're probably wondering, why should I care? Why are we hosting this? Jason?
Yeah, so the number one reason why we're hosting this series is because, next bullet point, please, traditional tech roles that are promoted through resources at UCLA. So that's like our career fairs, our career advising, and online, like on LinkedIn, Glassdoor, other job boards. I don't know what else people use. These are primarily focused on the corporate world, and they're primarily for South Campus students, right? So you can think about how many software engineering openings there are that are like just available every day. Amazon's always hiring, Facebook is always hiring software engineers, but these are very corporate, right? These aren't necessarily companies whose mission is to produce something good. And they might say that, like Amazon might say, oh, we're customer obsessed, but does that generate a positive social outcome that benefits all people, right? You can, for example, might look at how Amazon's goal, when you really distill it down, is to sell a bunch of products, as many as they can, as cheaply as they can, and turn a profit. And so we're trying to host this series because we want to show that there are other options for South Campus students besides just going into corporate and working in those very traditional tech roles. On the other hand, impact or nonprofit or community-oriented work is primarily for North Campus students. So you might think about how humanities majors might be more inclined, or people at least feel that they're more inclined to do work that is altruistic or just intrinsically beneficial to society or culture as a whole. But that kind of leaves us in an awkward spot about, like, what about social impact technology? What about those South Campus students who want to use their tech skills to do something more than just turning a profit, or just working as a cog in a much bigger corporate machine? Or alternatively, what do we think about North Campus students who are interested in technology but maybe don't know how to break into this space? So what about social impact technology? And that brings us into what the series will cover. What are we going to talk about to address this question of what social impact tech? Today is our introduction. 2 weeks from now, we will be having a workshop with another student organization on campus at UCLA. They're really awesome. We're super excited for that, and we hope you love them too. And then in week 6, we're going to have a careers panel. I can't talk about our panelists yet because I'm still confirming with some of them, but I can tell you they're very awesome, very exciting folks. And so I think it'll be great to hear from them. Oh, and then week 8 is to be determined. That one, we're still working on it.
Vote in the feedback form or give us suggestions on what you want.
All right, so backpedaling a little bit, who exactly is this series for? Well, one, we want this series to be for people who are interested in using their tech skills towards net positive social impact. And that kind of goes back to what I was talking about just a few slides ago. And our next point here is that we also want this series to be for people who want to make tech more responsible or ethical. Like maybe you have a goal or had a goal of working at Facebook or Amazon or some of these other companies, and you want to think about, like, how do I make tech and ensure that the work that I'm doing is responsible and ethical. And 3, anyone who is new to tech but sees a potential towards helping communities. And in this case, we want to emphasize that no prior tech experience is needed. Really, it's about having that passion to identify a problem that you see and think about how do we use technology to solve that problem. And then 4, anyone who is new to social impact but sees the need for social focus in tech. So this is kind of coming in from the other side of 3, 2 halves of the same coin. And again, no prior community engagement experience is needed. And last, anyone who wants to work in tech but maybe not necessarily sell their soul, so to speak. Okay, so then today's agenda, we're going to be talking about the types of positions and subfields that you can find in social impact technology. and then resources for finding opportunities, learning more, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end and a little bit of discussion too, actually. So we hope everyone will be involved with that.
And really quick, y'all should react if you're in 1, 2, 3, or 5, just so we make sure we have the right audience. I'll do a little reaction too. I love the reactions in the Zoom. Y'all are so active. All right, so I'll jump into the types of positions. There we go. Maybe my internet was slow. Yeah. Oop, one more in the waiting room. Awesome. So now we can actually get started with the meat of this workshop. I'll talk about some positions and subfields in social impact tech. So of course, there's plenty of technical roles for us CS majors and budding software engineers. You guys can work at nonprofits like Khan Academy, or like how I talked about corporate social responsibility. Lots of normal companies also have very philanthropic arms. For example, Google has google.org, and there are plenty of like for-profit. So instead of nonprofit, they're still working for a profit. There are plenty of for-profit companies that are still dedicated towards making an impact. And if you're, not feeling the whole corporate world, you can even find technical roles in the government, and this field is called Civic Tech. There's also plenty of roles in education. Honestly, some tea, possibly our ACM big president guy is helping to reform UCLA CS ethics. And there's plenty of groups that are dedicated to teaching CS and trying to make the field more diverse, such as Black Girls Code and Code 2040. And ACM Teach LA is trying to do that here as well. Some other roles might include doing research, data analytics, EDI at large companies, and this fancy role called tech ethicist. And along with the different job opportunities you can find, you might be wondering, which company to work at. So there's plenty of subfields in social impact as well. Jason's favorite is probably sustainability. You should ask him about environmental tech. It's very cool. There's also education. Me and Maya are big Teach LA fans. There's public policy. So anyone who's interested in maybe the School of Public Affairs, taking Public Affairs M109, or just looking into maybe breaking up the big tech companies in that one antitrust suit. There's also work in criminal justice reform and political campaigns. And this is really just a small subset of things we could put on this list. There's so much that social impact tech can be involved in. So I know I just threw a bunch of things at you. Jason will give you a bunch more resources that you can look through in your own time.
Yeah, so first up in talking about resources is how do you educate yourself on social impact tech topics? And a big tip that we can offer you is that social impact tech is a very broad term. Next bullet point, please, Alyssa. And so it's actually more helpful if you can narrow down just a few causes that you're passionate about. So for example, maybe you're like me and you're really concerned about the environment and the climate crisis. And so you want to know, okay, how is technology helping in this domain, right? Or maybe you're like Alyssa and Maya and you're just like, education is my thing. Like I really want to work on technical solutions to educational problems, like whether that's educational access, educational divides. Remote learning has been a huge issue, right? Like really exposing these disparities in educational opportunities for students, because not everyone can do remote learning. Or maybe you're interested in government, which is also something that I've done. Like Alyssa said, you can ask me about it. Shout out to Coding It Forward. That was my previous internship, and I think it was really cool. But yeah, so once you found the causes that you're passionate about and that you think, you can apply and find technical solutions to, then you want to start looking for organizations who are doing work in those subfields, because more likely than not, the problem area that you've identified, that domain you're interested in, is not completely new. And people have been working on it and chipping away at it for years or decades. And so there are going to be experts in those spaces who can kind of point you in the right direction and offer you some tips, or maybe you'll find a company that you want to work with or some other organization you want to work with. And so that's kind of what we're looking at here is start with social impact and then narrow it down to 1 or 2 things, maybe 3 things if you're really passionate about a lot of stuff. And then start Googling, just look for those orgs. Who is really well known, who is reputable, who has established themselves in this space. And then for discovering and learning more about social impact tech subfields, we have some resources that we provided here. Obviously not comprehensive. This is just a list of 4, but there are plenty of other resources you can find. These are just some of our favorites. And again, we should have a tiny URL for the slides. Maybe someone can drop that in the chat again so that you can check out those slides and you can click on these links here. And then in terms of finding opportunities, there are also like mailing lists and job boards and other things like that. So here's some that we list here. Tech Jobs for Good is kind of an all-encompassing one. They'll send you an email like once a week, I want to say maybe once every 2 weeks. And that just covers like a lot of different positions. And I think you can also just create an account there and they'll try to match you with people. There's Udacity Tech Jobs for Social Good, Tech Nonprofit Jobs. And then skipping down a bit because I'm not familiar with all of these like super intimately. I know geospatial jobs is a cool list if you're interested in environmental technology, and especially in doing like geoscience and what do you call it? Environmental informatics. That sort of work can be found on geospatial jobs. And that brings us to our discussion. So maybe at this point in the event, we can pause the recording so people feel a little more comfortable with talking. Okay, so very awesome discussion, y'all. Thank you for bringing up all those amazing viewpoints on social impact technology. Please fill out our feedback form, whether you are here in person, not in person, watching live or watching the YouTube recording. Please fill this feedback form so we know, what we did well and what we can do better and what you're looking forward to in future workshops. And thank you for coming. We'll see you Monday, week 4, same time, 6 p.m.